Just together and yes, and I yeah, and so yeah, like the last one. So I think that.
Morning. Good morning. We're so glad that you're here with us this morning. I'm so glad I'm here and breathing a little bit better. So I ask your patience with me a little bit. I'm still getting back into the realm of breathing, but I'm told I'm not contagious or anything. This was not COVID or flu or anything. So, but to that end, I will say for those of you that were looking forward to the open house this afternoon at our house, that has been postponed because my entire house is sick and I wouldn't want to bring you into that. And even so, we wouldn't have had the energy to get ready for it. So I was speaking to Chuck earlier. I think that in the doldrums of January or February, we'll probably reschedule when we're all looking for some things to do to be together and try to stay warm. So I will get back with you when we can postpone that. Another announcement I always like to make is that there is a plate for the offering by the door. I think I see it over there. My eyes are blurry. And do understand that we do take donations online as well as collect in the back any donations that you might have, plus any change that you might have for charity purposes. Yes, ma'am.
The envelopes that are in the collection basket. If anybody wants to, anybody who are members and have done pledges, want to make sure that a cash donation goes to their pledge, you put your donation in that, we'll put your name on it, and then Jim will make sure it goes to account for your pledge.
Right, and you know, if you want me to realize that there has been something put in that envelope with your name on it, if you like fold it in half or something, then I can, you know, I don't have to flip through all the envelopes and to see if there's one. Right,
Awesome.
so
fold it in half.
yeah.
Awesome. That works.
Good idea.
We're all full of good ideas. That's good. Another announcement. I know that I've had some people email me and also just casually mention membership. So if anybody here is interested in pursuing membership in our congregation, this woman back here, Kathy, would be happy to speak with you about that as well. I'm saying that also because since I'm a new member, I haven't asked permission from council for this, but I would love to be able to just kind of like have a little new member like class or something, so I can figure out, you know, some things and, you know, so as a, you know, that would be kind of cool. So as we gather new members, yeah, so it would be cool to do that, and we're probably going to have a new member Sunday pretty soon too. So That part I did know. Any other announcements that you'd like to share with our community?
Yeah, my chorus, the Great Northern Union, has a concert this afternoon at 3 o'clock at the Capri Theater in North Minneapolis, and it features the Bruce Henry Band, which is he's a famous singer, vocalist, and musical historian, and emceed by T. Michael Rambo, which we've had come speak at our church, and also a youth gospel choir called Known Minneapolis out of North Minneapolis. So it's going to be a really good show. And if you'd like to come, let me know, or I have to leave right away to make my noon call. But if you go to GNUsings.com, you'll find
I
it.
can help you if you need it.
Yeah.
Are tickets available at the door?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sure you can pay at the door or buy them while you're standing in the lobby with your phone.
Kelly and I are going, so
Yeah.
if you want to go, you won't be able.
Right. So there you go.
Thank you. Others? Well, I'm going to give a couple of plugs. If there are more, please feel free to share in a second. A couple of plugs. One is next Sunday, Barbara is we're going to do a little innovative thing. She misses us and we miss her.
Yeah.
And especially in light of the fact that she just recently lost her mother, she's going to do a pre-recorded presentation that she and I are conferring about that I'm going to kind of lead us into, and then we can have a discussion afterwards. So it's kind of our nuanced way of doing a collaborative ministry, which we're used to doing at the seminary. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you after Thanksgiving. And then just to remind you that we have a couple of cool holiday things coming up in December so that you can put them on your radar or your calendar or both. On December the 22nd, on Friday, that's a Friday at 7 p.m. here, we'll have a solstice service. And then on Christmas Eve, Sunday morning, we're going to have a Christmas caroling, singing, and a bunch of other things, I think, going on that day. So we're looking forward to the holiday season in this community. Other announcements before we begin? Okay, I invite us all to take a deep breath. Try to rid yourself of the chaos of life and living and sickness, as it were, and center ourselves as we come together in community. As you're able, please rise and join us in our opening words. Look to this day.
For it is life,
the very life of life.
In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence.
the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty.
For yesterday is but a dream,
And tomorrow is only a vision,
but today, well lived, makes every yesterday,
a dream of happiness.
and every tomorrow a vision of hope.
Look well, therefore, to this day.
In that vision of hope that we look toward this day, we light this chalice together as a community.
Sorry,
That's your cue.
falling down on the job here.
And say together,
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal with love, to help with compassion, to bless with joy, to serve you, Spirit of freedom, in the fullness of community.
And now let us join together in our opening hymn, number 338. Number 338, I seek the spirit of a child. May be seated. We gather together as a community of seekers to honor the interdependence of life, to respect the dignity of all, and to honor the land we walk humbly upon. Friends, let us acknowledge that we now stand and sit upon the traditional territories of the indigenous people, the Dakota, for whom this very county and congregation are named, and others, the members of the original nations of this land who continue to cry out for justice, preservation, and self-determination. We are blessed with a space, a community, and opportunities to strive to live out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to live out our dream of a world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together. At this time, I invite you to come forward and share a joy and/or a concern.
Want to share a joy. Our dog Braveheart had a cyst on his leg and we had surgery and it's all cancer-free. So we're all glad about that. I just forgot about this. You know what
I was sending you.
Jim's birthday is on Friday, yeah, the 24th. I don't know which one it is. Oh, it's that one. I just did the math. Yeah, 62 now.
He's so old.
No, he's not.
I'm 3 days after him, so I get to see him.
It's much younger.
Oh, really? Actually, same here too?
Yeah, oh, wow. Yeah.
This is a joy and a concern. Our daughter Kristen has COVID, and she was hosting Thanksgiving, and therefore I guess I may be having it if she doesn't test negative by tomorrow. So we went and got the turkey and all that stuff.
Never ends.
It's been a while, huh?
Actually, I've been keeping track for like the last 20 years, so I know who did what.
Wow.
I will now light a candle for all of those joys and concerns that remain unspoken, and for those that are joining us from the stream or on Zoom. May we know that whatever befalls us in life, we are held in the loving embrace of this community. And now we say together for those unspoken joys and concerns.
We hold you in our hearts.
Now I invite you to listen to my raspy voice as I share with you the reflective reading for today. This is entitled Radical Hospitality by Chris Latre. Autumn, late afternoon, and the leaf-falling moon is a round, ghostly presence, impossibly large in an impossibly blue sky. Grandfather Sun slips below the horizon, and just like that, the moon reflects bright, the stars and the planets walking all around her like fireflies emerging from the prairie. In trailers and shacks and distant woods Fire is stoked in stoves. Hands, age-spotted and trembling, feed the flames with dry, rich-smelling blocks of fresh split pine, fir, and birch. Can you feel heat that smells like dewagons, first soup and stew bubbling atop hot iron during the cold, snowy months to come? In that ancient valley, beleaguered with its own pile of modern troubles, I sip cold water from a jug, feel the chill beginning to rise as the ridges to the west darken to silhouette and the sky streaks with deeper shades of pink. Where does the water come from and all that living wood? Who is the magnanimous donor who confronts us with these gifts? Given all of our wreaked havoc on the world, whose hospitality is most radical? I've been engaging in every so often in presentations about radical hospitality. And of course, in this community, that's not a surprise because we are in the midst of engaging our future and who we are to become as a congregation, which for me includes the conversation about radical hospitality. Speaking of Thanksgiving, I'll share a little bit of a tidbit of a legacy that I didn't know would become a legacy for myself and my family. I posted about it on my social media, so if you're on my Facebook, this is a repeat. But about 19 years ago, I was living in Orlando, Florida. I had just ended a 13-year relationship. I was not from Orlando, and I was very new there. I had just taken a new job to be the district supervisor of gifted education for elementary schools, and I knew no one at all, really. And it came about that, you know, at the beginning of the school year, things just rush and rush and rush, and all of a sudden it was Thanksgiving. Kind of feel that way this year too. And I was like, what am I going to do for Thanksgiving? I, years ago, before that, had not been made welcome in my family for a variety of reasons, so I didn't have a home to go to. And I was like, should I just sit here and wallow in my sorrow of loneliness? Or should I engage one of my great loves in the world, which is cooking? But for whom shall I cook this big meal? And I heard the Spirit, however you envision the Spirit. Maybe it was too much caffeine, I don't know. But I heard the Spirit say, cook it and they will come. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I had some vodka. I can't remember. But I did. The school district had honored me with a free turkey. I know that's not something that's unusual around, you get free turkeys. And I'm like, okay, I guess got to cook this thing. And, I had a family legacy of having this wonderful meal that I would share with my family when I was young. So my neighbor asked me, what am I doing for Thanksgiving? I see you're still here. She was an elderly woman who didn't have any children, and she just rented the condo next to me. And I said, well, I'm not really doing anything other than just hanging out. She's like, well, I saw you carrying all these groceries in. Who are you cooking for? I said, I'm cooking for you. Didn't you know that? And she looked at me kind of cross-eyed, and she's like, are you serious? And I'm like, sure. And as the story kept going, I had other people that asked me what I was doing for Thanksgiving since I was new in town. Most of them were colleagues. Some of them were people that I had known in, just very briefly living in that area. I even had the person at Publix. I'm not sure if you know about Publix, but it's the best grocery store in the world. And so they said, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? it's where shopping is a pleasure, so they're very nice. And even the person at the deli of Publix said, wow, that's awesome. I wish I had a place to go for Thanksgiving. And in this really strange, reassorted stone soup story, all of a sudden, I had a pretty big gathering for Thanksgiving in my apartment, and I really didn't know many of these people at all, other than just in passing. And there were even people who came to me and said, could I take a plate to so-and-so because they're at home by themselves too. There were no leftovers left. And I want to let you, I'm sure you all know that's a very unusual thing for Thanksgiving because we always over-prepare. And I mean, I cooked a 35-pound turkey. I didn't buy it. It was given to me. But there's no food left over. And I mean, I cook. I mean, I had like, you know, the stuffing and the mashed potatoes and everything. And my idea was I was just going to eat on that for the rest of the week, but that flew out the door. And I tell you this story not only because it's true, but it actually changed part of me in so many ways because I didn't know these people. And yet we came together in an unlikely community, and everybody had something that made them so different, yet we were able to celebrate together and come together in our diversity. I met so many different people because not only did the people that asked me, you know, hey, what's going on, they brought other people with them. There were kids. I hadn't had kids around in a long time other than at school. I used to say, I don't know how parents do this, where if they're teachers, they have kids at home and then they go and teach all day with kids. But I really enjoyed it. It was amazing. And I found out my apartment wasn't too kid-proof, but good parents very quickly went around my apartment and made it kid-proof, so thank you to them. Radical hospitality. I didn't even know what that meant at that time. I didn't know that I was really practicing that, and I wasn't doing that intentionally. I just felt lonely, and I just decided to cook. That was all, because I can be my own good company too. But there it was, all of us together on this day where these people had various stories of saying why they didn't have a place to go. Most of them, the vast majority of them, said they didn't have a place to go because they were uninvited somewhere over the course of their lives for a variety of reasons. One, she married a person who was African American, and so her family didn't invite her anymore. One person said that, you know, she stood up and, you know, protested about something in the last family gathering, and so she was uninvited. I think it was because she was like saying something political about some presidential candidate at the time. Now I know her very well. And, you know, several people came. They were not invited because they had partners of the same gender or a variety of reasons. But there we all were, all different walks of life, all ages, including my neighbor who was 93, who had no place to go. And then we had kids. The youngest was 2 years old. What an expanse. To me, though, that is a reflection of how the congregations that we have should be. We are called to be radically hospitable, like that. And you've heard that from me before. What does that mean? Well, one, it means that when somebody shows up in this community, our new people that come around, we are obligated to genuinely notice them. To say, and really believe, you are welcome in this community. And we can just in our minds say to ourselves, even though you may not have been welcome in another community. You don't know how much that by itself can change the course of someone's life. And then we're also called to give people personal, individual acknowledgement. You are an amazing human being and we're really glad that you're here. How can we be a community for you? And then finally, of course, we're also called to follow up and say, hey, it was really great to have you. Would you be interested in being a part of such and such, this little group, this activity? You know, we have a solstice service coming up, shameless plug, whatever. These are the kinds of things that transform us as a congregation, inviting and genuinely having that love that we spread to one another. As Unitarian Universalists, one of the things that we are called also to do is to challenge our own assumptions, challenge our own beliefs and understandings about the world, look at the lenses through which we see, and realize that not everybody sees the world through those lenses. Last week, we had my dear friend Steph talk to us about accessibility. What does it look like to have a place, a community that is truly accessible to people who are physically disabled, who are neurodivergent in several different ways that we don't even know about? What does it mean to be accessible? How do we make our congregation more accessible? What does it mean to accept people for who they are, not just their ethnicity and the color of their skin or things like that, but also who they love and how they love? What does it mean to accept people that have all a variety of beliefs? I mean, the great thing about Unitarian Universalism is we can look next to each other and say, oh, well, you know, you believe completely differently than me, but that's okay because we're all here together. And it comes from our Judeo-Christian heritage that we did evolve out of. I was working on a class that I'm making for seminary that I teach at Eden Seminary in St. Louis. It's called The Life and Teaching of the Apostle Paul. Now, most of you don't know me as well as, you know, my scholarly friends do about how I feel about Paul. But it's kind of an ongoing joke that, well, we'll let Brian do that because he's the cynical one about the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul is both a wonderful guy to me, but also he ticks me off. Like, that sexism and misogyny and all that stuff kind of gets on my nerves. So when the dean asked me to make this, she grinned and giggled at me and said, have fun with that. But what I did find out as I'm designing this is that I can still do that. I can still teach about things no matter what I feel about the actual teaching. I can share that knowledge, even if I don't necessarily agree with all of it. But I also realize that one of the reasons why Christianity itself survived amidst all of the different kinds of sectarian things going on during the ancient times of the first century in Palestine was because Paul was all about inclusivity, despite all of those other things that he did. Because he was like, you know, you don't have to be a Jewish person to do this. You don't have to be a person who believes this particular thing. Everybody is welcome into this fold. And each one of the letters that Paul wrote were to different communities that shared sometimes nothing in common with the others. And so that part of our Judeo-Christian history still lingers within Unitarian Universalism of we are coming together because we all are different and we can be together in covenant with one another, realizing that each and every one of us has a miraculous gift to share in this community. Even if we look back to the Hebrew scriptures, one of my favorite stories is Ruth and Orpah. Of course, the two women that had such a radical, inclusive love for one another, who said, I'm going to go with you, and your people are going to be my people, and your God is going to be my God. And while theologically that may be very interesting to have a conversation about, the idea is that no matter who was, you know, there and what people believed before, be together in a community and build a family together. And we could look to other religions like Buddhism. I mean, the founder of Buddhism did so because he said, you know, that religion over there has too much litmus test stuff going on to be able to be a part of it. And that caste system thing, not so much a fan. I don't believe that one person is better than another person like that. And so an entire religion was born out of that. Despite how you feel about whether you believe that all life is suffering, that religion proliferated because everybody was welcome. And there were easier ways to actually approach divine living. And I could go on and on and on about different religious movements that survive. And if we look at Unitarian Universalist churches that are actually growing in a time when churches generally are not growing, the ones that are growing are practicing absolutely radical hospitality. Realizing that each and every person who comes into our midst is a mysterious gift who will come and be a part of this community and then be a part of the change that happens. And the community will never be the same. And in some way, that's a miracle. And so one of the pieces that I always talk about, and this is why the song that we sang first, The Spirit of a Child, is so near and dear to me, because one of the most important things, after having spent half of my life teaching young children, is that we as adults become jaded sometimes. I know you know. I know you've been there. I know I've been there with just this week. But if we really think about it and approach our loving, radically hospitable community with the mind of a child, with the soul of a child, realizing that things like racism and homophobia and sexism and all of the other isms and obias are all taught. And because they're taught, they can be untaught. And one of the greatest ways to unteach them is through the practice of radical hospitality and giving love to one another. And as I said over and over before, this community is so filled with love. We have so much to share. And I'm so glad to be a part of that. And as we move forward with the heart of children, let's also think about how we can actually have a program with children. How wonderful would that be? The intentionality of saying, well, there may not be any children here today, but you know, Brian always has something in his little folder just in case children show up. Mm-hmm. We can be that love for everyone who needs it. We can build that feast where somebody somewhere needs to come, who's alone, who's looking for a place to belong, who wants to be a part of the community, who wants to have genuine notice and some love that they're not receiving other places. That's what this congregation is to me. And I then exhort, I love that word from Paul, I exhort us all to continue to move forward and practice an ongoing spirit of radical hospitality. I now invite us into a time of congregational reflection and discussion.
That was a wonderful sermon, thank you.
Well, thank you.
I always like to hear what Unitarian Universalists are all about, you know, to be reminded. But, you know, I wish I was better at radical hospitality, but I think my biggest barrier to that is you have to put yourself in a vulnerable position. And having been raised in a certain way that, you know, my parents were not, I mean, yes, they were liberal and UUs and all that kind of stuff, but they really never went that far. And then also, I have been taken advantage of in my life. And so that, and our congregation here too, we had a person in here that did some really awful things. And so, you know, that's, how do you get through that and how do you deal with it and not fear, basically?
Along with that, I've heard it said that, you know, the whole Minnesota nice thing, Minnesotans will tell you, will give you directions to anywhere except their own house.
There's a whole sermon in that. Thank you. I appreciate that. Look out, everybody.
Yeah, there's always a risk, I guess. I think the assumption that there's more benefit to hospitality than there is a drawback in the long run. And as long as you're got a clear mind about it, and you know, or can notice a betrayal of that trust or whatever early enough to do something about it, know what to do.
There's a story I heard about, other people probably heard it too, about, you know, trusting and charity and the stranger and vulnerability and being made a fool of. It's like, I don't know, the story went something like, you know, the guy was pulled up to a stop sign and there was a baker there and he handed a $10 bill out the window and drove off, and the person beside him said, you know, why did you do that? That person's just gonna spend it on drugs or alcohol or something. And the driver of the car said, if I see a person in need and I give him $10 and he spends it on drugs, that says something about him. If I see a person in need and I give him $10 and I don't give him $10, that says something about me. And so, I mean, I don't hand a lot of money out the window. It's not but I tried it. I mean, there was a lady in the Target parking lot the other day that I did give some money to. But yeah, I tell myself, you know, if I don't do this, it says something about me. And what they do with the money is on them.
Well, I think that if we could practice radical hospitality here, we can then practice it in the world. It's like, you know, you can go into a grocery store and with all those self-checkout things, I mean, I could go in Fresh Time and not speak to one person. So I make it an effort to, you know, if I'm, you know, going past someone or we sort of bump into each other, I say hello and I maybe start a conversation, or if they're at the same counter I am. I mean, you can go in there and not even speak with one person.
Yeah.
That's crazy, but.
That reminds me, my great-grandfather told me years and years ago, and this was in the 80s, and he was quoting somebody else, and if you all know, somebody knows where this quote comes from, I would love to know because I don't know where it came from. But he said he said that he heard someone say that one of the worst inventions of the Western world was the automatic garage door opener. That in the 1940s and 50s, people actually had to get out of their cars and talk to their neighbors before they actually raised the garage door. And that's very similar to that, you can go to the grocery store and not talk to anybody kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know really what that means, but that's just what that made me think of.
We lived in Southern California for 4 years, and even in the, suburbs, well, even in the inner parts of town with the small little houses, everybody had a private yard with a brick wall that was, 6 feet high. And nobody knew their neighbors, it seemed like, and it's not quite as bad here, but it's still, we just kind of come and go, and it's maybe hi, good morning, but that's about all. But, it's
One of my brothers owned different bars in Minneapolis over the years in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and he did kind of the same thing you did, Ryan. On Thanksgiving, he'd make a feast at the bar and just not knowing how many people would come and just put it out for whoever in the neighborhood. And it just made him feel really good and,
Made them feel good.
it made them feel good too, yeah, but,
That's awesome.
so, it's like, cook it and they will come.
Still can't get over the 35-pound turkey though.
I don't know what they were thinking of when they gave it to me. I was the new guy in town, but whatever.
Everyone else wanted the smaller one.
You're right.
Ryan, how did you cook it?
oven?
What's that?
How did you get it in an oven?
Oh, I spatchcocked it. You remember, I'm a poultry person, so I had raised turkeys myself before then. And so I learned a long time ago, my mom didn't even cook a turkey whole like that. She just cut the backbone out and then cut it in half and cooked two, well, I'm not very good at math, 2 halves.
You had a word for that.
Spatchcocked. Spatchcock means you can do that to any fowl, where you take the backbone out. Why am I talking about this? I love cooking.
Sorry.
And I love birds too, so. But yeah, that's how I got it in the oven.
As long as we're on the subject, I saw this really cool story about bun pans. And they cooked a chicken on top of the butt, about the tunnel
Yeah, I
part,
saw that.
and put vegetables in it.
Oh.
And it was
Yeah.
like, that's such a cool idea. I don't eat chicken, but
Yeah, we were on Sunday morning here
Yeah.
in Minnesota, Nordic Ware.
yeah, exactly.
Well, it is Thanksgiving week, so we get to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
But while we're off the subject, they have in grocery stores in the Netherlands, slow lines, where you go through, if you want to talk to the cashier and have a little conversation.
Yes.
And some human interaction.
Wow.
I try to pick the non-self-checkout,
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I say? I'll go through the self-checkout if you're gonna give me a W-2.
Right,
I charge $75 an hour. You're gonna pay me.
yeah.
Good luck with that.
I just said I say it. I didn't say it. I will add one thing. I know that when you talked about fear, another part of all of this is accountability. So you can look for, this is a preview to another presentation probably, but one of the issues around making ourselves vulnerable and engaging in radical hospitality out of that fear is, people can come in and take advantage. But part of that, and I think this is probably because I do boundary training for professors and other professionals, is that having a good set of pre-existing boundaries and accountability structures in the leadership in the congregation helps with that. And I think that that's something that we could also engage in as far as the future vision, because that helps get us through those difficult times when there are people who may come in with different agendas than we had hoped. Is that a nice way to put that?
Yeah.
And so, not that I wanted to get the last word, but in the interest of time, and Chuck has to get gone, and I need to get back home and feed people. So, with that, let's continue that conversation ongoingly and at snack time. And if you would, please join me in our closing hymn. Stand if you are able. Number 145. 145.
Streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea. Our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free. Free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless greed. Free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need. A freedom that reveres the past, but trusts the dawning future more, and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free.
As we launch into this Thanksgiving week, I leave you with the thought of being free by loving radically, freeing ourselves, moving forward, and giving thanks for all the blessings that we have so that we could use those blessings in the service of one another and people that we don't even know yet. Go in peace.
It's called Free Theater in Minneapolis.
Have you ever been teaching and then at the end you say, I made it? That's how I feel right now.
We had a fish station in my class on Tuesday. We wanted to get this
20 and 25 West Broadway. In North Minneapolis.
keep,
But if you
something
look up
that
for
makes
Free Theater,
halfway sense. You're like, finally, just what's the other talker? I said, not done yet? We're doing fine. Just talk about their hobbies.
It's hard to be fake for me.
That's for the humor aspect.
yeah.
Thanks, Brian, for letting us know how you got that. I didn't even know you could find one. We were looking for a tree last night.
Oh, yeah.
Cumberland has them. 17
I brought them today,
So
so.
we always pre-order. Hopefully now next year I'll be raising my own again. That way.
Raising?
Turkeys, yes. We're trying to get a farm. We just got approved for a mortgage to buy a farm. So next year maybe you'll get one for me. But I love doing that. But yeah, I always pre-order one. We just get Whole Foods every year.
Seeing other people with it.
Yeah.